If you go to Nordic countries, it's more about depression. If you go to the Western countries, it's more about relationships.
It's not to have no stress, but to be able to deal with it, to cope with it, and to have a fulfilling life.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Crossover. I'm Ji Xiaojun.
Hello from Beijing. I'm Louisa Lee.
This is Tom.
I'm Tom.
We have a special guest joining us. What is it about again, the topic?
It's about stress and stressors.
Yeah, I'm feeling it now.
Yeah. I can see that you're sweating a little bit, right?
I am, actually. So stress, you're feeling it every day?
I'm okay, actually. I deal with stress quite well.
Okay.
I walk my dog when I'm stressed. I clean when I'm stressed.
Wait. You walk your dog when you feel stressed?
Yeah. I take him out for a little walk.
Okay.
And
How does it work?
I get some fresh air.
Yeah, because I'm a cat person. I have a cat, so I don't...
You don't get to walk your cat.
The other day I actually tried to walk the cat.
You can still try, but you know, by petting them,
Didn't work out.
by petting them, it lowers your blood pressure.
Yeah, now Tom is doing well.
See,
Tom is doing
I'm lowering my blood pressure right now.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about stress and what will be the main sources of stress, especially for Chinese younger generation, and why is that happening?
Yeah.
Why is that true to them? And how do they deal with that? And for that, we're now joined in the studio by Tom and also by 3 guests. Welcome. Welcome to Crossover.
Hello.
So why don't you just introduce yourself?
I'm Preethaji, founder of ONO Academy from India.
Okay, and what do you do?
We teach individuals to live a more purposeful and meaningful life where you're not driven by separation. We work on their consciousness, we work on their mind, we work on the being, making them into being a total human being.
And you're familiar with the topic we're talking today?
Absolutely.
All right.
Can you give us some good advice about how to cope with stress?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have Paul, an old friend.
Yeah, a familiar face here on Crossover.
Yeah, so glad to be back. I'm a psychologist.
Yes. All right. Familiar with the term stress?
Of course. Well, stress is part of life.
You feeling it?
Not so much right now. I think partly because I'm fairly familiar with this surroundings and I've been here before. But I think anytime we're dealing with something new, something challenging, there will be stress.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Hazel. I'm from a PR company, so we do a lot of issues and crisis management work. So yes, I am fairly familiar with the term stress.
Yeah. That's why it's called crisis management, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, Tom is gone.
Oh, Tom
Feeling
is
the pressure, feeling the stress from the during this program.
Yeah.
If we talk about the younger generation of the Chinese society, where do you think they feel most stress from?
It is competition over here.
Competition
It
at
is
work,
wanting to get a home, I understand. But probably in India, it is not finding the right job for the education you've had. If you go to Nordic countries, it's more about depression. If you go to the Western countries, it's more about relationship. Problems and challenges do exist in life.
Right.
But how are we equipped to face these challenges? What are we doing to them?
Yeah.
Are we just putting it under the carpet, running over and let it deteriorate the inner condition? Or are we bringing attention to it and releasing stress, living in a beautiful state?
So, Paul, you agree? It's from work, from relationships? Or?
Yes. Well, first of all, I agree that stress is part of life, right?
Yes.
It's everywhere. But in China, perhaps, it seems to be stronger than in most parts of the world, partly because of the last, say, 30 years or so. China has changed so much in such a short period of time. So there's a faster progression of new challenges coming up and people facing multiple challenges.
Yeah, like you mentioned, because of the fast economic growth, all these changes, people are experiencing all these changes that are happening in their lives, and they're new to it. They're new to these changes.
It's all new. It's all new to everyone.
Yeah.
How about you, Hazel?
I think there's a lot of expectations. I mean, judging from interactions with my local colleagues, there's fresh out of university, getting into university is the basic, right? And then after that, fresh out of university, there's a lot of...
When you consider it a basic, that's a pressure. That's a stress.
And then there's all these expectations of being married, having children, buying property.
Yes.
And it's almost non-stop from the way I observe things.
Yes.
There's no pause. There is this continuous, like, what's next, what's next, what's next. I'm fortunate enough not to be part of that stress bubble, but I mean, working with a lot of my colleagues, I feel it from them when they talk about it. Now, every conversation was about like, where can I afford to buy a place, or how much do I need? It's always constant planning.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to know that stress, don't just see it as a negative thing, because many of the good things in life comes as a result of you going through experiences that has stress as part of it.
That's almost like a motivation.
Because otherwise your life would be terribly boring. You know, nothing happens.
All right.
So it's not to have no stress, but to be able to deal with it,
Okay.
to cope with it, and to have a fulfilling life.
So live with it, but not too much.
But the thing is, I think if we actually have to look into stress very deeply, it is actually pre-immersion, a post-immersion, and a repeated immersion of a problem.
Now, theory aside, let's come down to specifics. Because
Okay.
we did an interview, street interview with passers-by and see what their stress is about.
有啊，那肯定会有啊，在北京这么大，
还是会有的。
会有，有压力老大了。
会啊，有的时候，尤其最近压力很大的。
我觉得挤地铁对我压力就挺大的。
像我们女孩子比较关心的这个人问题，就是小孩生病的时候，可能但是又要去工作呀，我这个时候就会有点压力。啊，因为我最近现在要毕业了，然后要写毕业论文，还要找工作，工作上或者是学习上都是会有压力。家庭上方面，还有工作和家庭如何平衡的时候，会感觉到有压力。
如果月薪不良了，生活压力就会比较大。买房啊，买车啊。
去吃吃东西啊，然后听听音乐，休息一下，然后会跟好朋友聊聊，因为大家多少有点相似的经历，然后可能会有一个心理上的这种支持。
听听演唱会啊，或者出去玩啊，这样是看看海，望着天空，叫一声好了。
会去运动，然后出一身汗，运动吧，运动会很好的排解一下这个压力。
The answer is almost 100% yes. I feel it. I'm feeling it. It's only feeling it from different sources. It's either work, it's either balance between work and family, or
Relationship.
or education, or relationship, and everything. So let's start with work first. Why work is one of the main sources for stress?
For one thing, especially for young people, you know, when they first started working, unlike the previous 16 years or 17 years at, in school, you know, you become so good at studying and taking tests and so on, and then you get into the work world. It's something that you are not familiar with. Stress, it does not stop there, because as you begin to move up, there are new people who are trying to push you, and then as you move up, there are fewer and fewer higher up positions available. And so the competition is fierce, and that does not stop.
Hazel?
Yeah,
you're
definitely
nodding.
agree with the competition part, because I mean, we're just a very competitive society, right? And China takes it to a whole new level because of, you know, the amount of resources and the amount of talent that you have here. When you think you're great in school and you come out, like you said, real life, right? You're not the best. You could be the best in class, but when you come out, you're just one of the many. So
It's a different world.
There's this whole reality, like, oh, I'm not that great. I'm not the best anymore, and now I need to like up my game and improve and work even harder and compete. So there's this whole level of self-expectations, society's expectations, your boss's expectations, your parents' expectations. So all coming together at one go, where, you know, it just comes in your face, where else you never really had to deal with it in school. And, you know, for the first few years of work, it's, you know, it's about trying to get into a good company. So that's the basic again. And then once you move up the ladder, it's always like, who's competing with me for my job, or like, you know, is my client happy, for example? Is my boss happy?
So competition and expectation from yourself, from your family, from your bosses,
from your boss, from your surroundings, really.
Right, and all these KPIs and
KPIs.
all these targets you have to meet by the end of the month or the year, and if you don't, then there will be some consequences.
And you have salary to prove that if you did a good job or not. So I guess it's everything, right?
This kind of a stress from competition, from expectations, is that universal?
It is universal, and it takes out passion from life.
It's universal, but it's super intense here in China, I think. That's
Especially
in
And you
China.
think it's more intense here than, say, you're
I mean,
from
like,
Malaysia?
For what? And
Malaysia.
why is it like that?
I think because, again, you know, the economy is booming. You're going to the next level. You're on a global stage now. World economy power. There's a lot of, like, realization that, oh, we're now up there competing with the rest of the world. And, you know, I need to travel. I need to learn. I need to be the best in my game or whatever. So that's, again, coming back to
the same condition in
Yeah.
India too, because it's a lot of competition, it's accelerating growth.
One of the reasons for China and for India and much of Asia, you know, we are more of a collective society. There are more people who can put stress on you. You know, in the U.S., you know, you're 18, you know, you're out of the door, you're on your own. But in China, you know, all the uncles and aunts and cousins.
People ask how much money you're making.
And your elementary school classmates. You know, these are all the people who could continue to put stress on you. So stress comes from so many sources in a collective
You can't just
society.
ignore that.
You cannot.
It sounds almost like, especially when the economy is good, everyone has to work even harder. To catch up with the trend.
The focus becomes on the external, as I said.
Right.
It is not about the quality of life. It is not about your passion anymore.
Yeah.
It is just being ahead of everybody else. That becomes the goal.
It's like peer pressure. So even let's just say, you know, if your parents are really progressive, modern, and they're like, oh, you know, go ahead, do whatever you like. Then you come to work, and then like everyone around you is like, I need to earn X amount by next month, or I need to buy the latest flashy cars or handbags. So there's all this peer pressure around you. I mean, and obviously you can choose to disconnect and not want to engage
I
at that level.
I don't want them to disconnect.
Yeah, but you know, I think it takes experience and a lot of, you know, self-reflection, I suppose, to come to that level where you say, you know what, I'm not going to be stressed about these things because, you know, I'm going to worry about other things that can make me happy. But I mean, I don't think a lot of us know how to get there.
So is that a Asian culture thing, Chinese culture thing?
I think definitely Asian. I mean, coming from
I think she's pointing out to a very key question, is that so many people are stressed because it seems like they're trying to please others, other people's expectations.
Wait, say that again.
They're trying to please
Clarify.
others.
Yeah.
Trying to please other people's expectations.
Who is the others?
Others that
Society.
could include society, your family, your coworkers, your classmates from school, your neighbors. You know, okay, you're 28 and you've been working for 4 years. You should have this.
Yeah.
You know, other people of your age and
Expectations,
of your background have this. So that they're so stressed, but they haven't paid any attention of their own needs.
Inner peace.
What are the things that
what they
make you
really want.
Yeah.
They lose sight of what they really want.
Distracted by what
others
seems
want for
everyone
them.
is doing in this society.
What is expected of them becomes more important than feeling what they really want, because it's moving so fast.
But to reach that level, you have to be able to not want those things. You have to be not competitive. You have to be not, you know...
It's all negative.
No, you...
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, because if you find your passion and you're doing something because you're passionate about that, because you want to do it, you will be competitive, but you won't be doing it so that you can be one up on someone else.
You would love what you're doing it, and you'll be fully there, you'll be enjoying the experience, and you will create the success that you want to create.
At the same time, there is one more fact, that China is still in transition and is progressing every day, changing every day. And I guess when you go too fast, not like, you know, the society's been stabilized and then everyone probably has the time to step back a little bit and really think about what they need, what they're expecting in their life. I don't know, maybe this is more about this boom. I don't know, booming economy is good.
It's an
but
accelerating growth,
yeah.
yes.
Let's move on to the next one. Buying property.
Buying a house.
Buying a house.
Is that an expectation from men to have a house before they can settle down, even have a girlfriend?
But the thing is that people buy houses, properties everywhere, in every country, but somehow we still get the impression that this is especially a major issue.
Yeah, it's important. You not just have a
In
house,
China.
you also need to have a car.
A car.
Yeah, a car first.
Compared to a house, that's
Yeah, a car
easy.
and then a house, yeah.
That's easy. But, you know, it's getting cheaper. The houses, they're getting more expensive day by day. Housing price in India, how is it?
It's getting expensive by the day.
Too, it's the same thing is happening everywhere.
Everywhere. I mean, around everywhere.
But is
in
it
India,
like-
yes, in India and China, it is more. It's
Yeah.
faster. And even before you think you're going to buy something, the prices have gone up. So,
Is it also like that? You feel the pressure while
no, we
working?
don't have the pressure of having to have a house before you get married or find a girlfriend, but it is it's important to find the right job, because that is very difficult in India.
Because that's the pretext to buy a house.
Yes, yes, we start off there. The
yeah.
pressure is starting much more earlier.
Yeah. So why especially true with housing, with properties?
Well, partly it's the culture, because in some cultures, just having a home that you own is very important.
Do you feel
Okay.
safe?
It's not just feeling safe. It's because the Chinese word for home, you know, the assumption is that you own the place. If you rent a place, it's not a home. So basically, you are a homeless person who's renting a place.
Unless
and
you
want
own it.
and you want to marry my daughter. You know, so that's a no.
Right.
Yeah. So partly it's the culture, and partly also, I think for a lot of people, owning a home has been taken as a almost like a measuring stick. You know, this is, you know, when you have a home, then you have reached a particular level.
But then the measuring stick doesn't stop. It can be a better home.
Yeah, it depends
can be
where
a
the
Exactly,
home is.
exactly,
Is it
yeah.
the third ring or is it outside the third ring?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the starting point.
This is a starting point.
You need to have
yeah.
a home first.
It has been taken as a starting point. And at different time of the last 30, 40 years, you know, this has been changing. In the beginning, you know, it was a bicycle when I was, you know,
Right.
when I was young.
Yeah.
And then it
A
moved
sewing
to
machine.
a sewing machine, then color TV,
Okay.
and then refrigerator, you know, and so on. And then finally it got to car.
So next stage will be a spaceship or something? Yeah. So, Hazel?
I definitely agree with the whole cultural thing. My grandfather's from Guangzhou in China, so like when he moved, he migrated to Malaysia many years ago. Even, you know, growing up with him, with whatever limited interactions that we had, the one thing that he constantly drilled into our heads was that you need a home. You can be hungry, you can be ugly, you can be dirty, anything you want in life, but you need to have a roof over your head.
Not a home or a house?
Yes, a home, like your own property, right?
Yeah,
so,
a property.
So
yeah.
that was
That's
like
a house. A home is not just a house.
So
right?
for him, it's like you have to own it.
Yeah.
It has to be yours. You know, you can't be renting it. So that was kind of drilled into all our heads since we were kids. And so we grew up thinking, yes, we need it, we need it, we need to buy. Like that's the first thing. So coming down to our generation now, you know, with my younger sister, you know, that they don't even need to think about buying a car because you have like Uber and stuff. So now it just goes straight to like, with my first paycheck, can I put a, you know, deficit towards owning a home? And I think my observation here in China is that owning a home, especially for the men, it's like a must-have in order to get a bride. So it's almost like in order to get to step 2 of getting a wife, and then the family, which is step 3, coming back to step 1 is buying the
How
house.
true is that, say, with your company? To own a property before they can get serious with the relationship of, say, a marriage?
I think based on, I mean, my colleagues, a lot of them talk about homes outside of ring 4 and ring 5, and it's always about like how close can I get into the city,
Yeah.
how much stress it is to have, you know, 2 salaries pulled together to fund the home.
Not only 2 salaries, it's 2 families,
Yeah,
2
and
extended families together.
And also to think about the kids that they're going to have. Like, you know, now, like some of them, they had their first kid, and because they're allowed to have a second kid, they want another kid. So like, can I expand my family? The culture, Asia in general, you want to live with your parents or your in-laws, for example.
Still?
I think so. That's the observation from my colleagues.
To take care of the kids.
Yeah, you have to, you know, have. So you're not planning for you, wife, and kid. It's you, wife, kid, in-laws, and maybe your parents. I
That's
don't know,
also
it's
quite
like,
stressful.
So like you
I
need
feel,
more
right?
space.
Yeah, that's another one from family.
yeah,
From
yeah.
family.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a cultural thing.
So the other side of the pressure is also from the ever-rocketing housing price.
Prices,
Yeah.
yes.
That's the thing. Maybe that is also in turn driven by what you've talked about, you know, the expectations, the habit and cultural thing, and that, you know, the price is ever going up. But, you know, policies have been introduced, actually adopted by the government to try to control the housing price. has been stabilized for now. Hopefully, at least a stabilized housing price will give hope to the next generation.
Well, it will probably have some effect, but I think what will really help turn the tide would not be enforcement of certain policies to try to control the market, but actually, change in values. That there are fewer and fewer people who consider this a must. Fewer and fewer people whose lives are kidnapped by other people.
Yeah, you're giving stress
but
to
it's,
the government.
yeah, but it's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, it's even longer term.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break first, and we'll come back. We'll continue our discussion.
Don't go away. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Every time they hear that you're 30 and single, they say, what?
And everyone is asking.
Everybody wants.
Let me set you up a date. Let me
Everyone is
introduce you.
checking on you.
Two pairs of grandparents who seem to be competing for the affection of the grandchild. And so they are the rule breakers.
Welcome back to the studio. And earlier in our previous segment, we talked about stress regarding work and financial status.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about family and relationships.
Just before the break, you kept mentioning parents and extended families. It is true, especially in Chinese culture, that parents play a very important role almost in every aspect of their kid's life. In relationship, in buying a house or not, in choosing the right subject in your college and which university you're going to go to. What kind of pressure, say, are we talking about in India? Family?
The same thing. It exists.
Same thing.
The parents have a very huge say. But as he says, it's changing.
It is.
It is changing. It is changing for the good, giving more freedom to the children. We see in few families. Just hope it becomes a way of life.
It is changing slowly. But the biggest problem in the family, really, let's assume that it's just 3 generations. Because of the rapid change of the last 30 years or so, 30, 40 years, the 3 generations grow up at a different background. So they have different value systems. What's important for grandpa is different from what's important for dad, and it's different from what's important for you.
Yet they still need to live.
And you still live under the same roof.
I think that's very stressful.
Parents could be adamant about something, this is non-negotiable, but then for the
principle.
Yeah, it's a matter of principle. But then for their son's generation, it's something that's totally irrelevant.
And I realize here in Beijing, at least from what I see, a lot of grandparents actually take part in taking care of the kids.
That's also part of the
tradition.
Yeah, it's part of the tradition, but it used to work perfectly because we all agree on the same values. But now it's different. The grandparents want to instill certain value in the kids, which but the environment for that particular value maybe no longer exists.
And not only that, the parents don't agree with it.
Yeah, the parents don't agree with it. So they argue. They have different rules. And
you have to make compromises.
What you're trying to create at the end of the day is a child who's very conflicted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not compromise. It's a matter of, for a child, for them, what's important is that there's a uniformity of rules. We know what the rules are. It's like you play tennis. We have to agree that if you land on the line, it's in. Okay? And when you play,
no matter how tiny it is.
Yeah. And if you play basketball, if you land on the line, it's out.
All right.
So whatever the rule is, whether it's in or out, let's have an agreement on it. But now the child grew up in a family where for the parents, it's out. For the grandparents, it's in. That's why we also see a lot of kids, we say they're out of control, partly because they grew up literally with no rules, because there are 2 sets of conflicting
rules.
rules.
No control at all.
It's not just between the husband and the wife. You have grandparents involved, and it's quite conflicting if you put them under the same roof.
Well, there's another problem with this, is that in China, because of the population demographic, we have more and more elderly people.
Yeah.
So elderly people, as they grow older, they feel lonely. And so you have the situation where grandparents, 2 pairs of grandparents, who seem to be competing for the affection of the grandchild. And so they are the rule breakers, do anything they can to be the favorite grandpa.
I think, I've been pretty lucky. We all lived under the same roof as well. So I had my grandfather and my father, and then that was me. But we were, they were fairly, I think, progressive. I would like to think there was no pressure on like expectations. Like the only one thing that all of us had to achieve in life was to really just go and finish your high school, finish your university, and after that you can do whatever you want. So it was always like, you have to listen to me now until you graduate. Once you graduate, you can do whatever you want. So that was this thing where we're like, okay, we'll finish school, and then after that we could do whatever we want. So after we graduated, like all of us, there's 4 of us in the family, my siblings and I, we were never given a lot of pressure, or there were never really hard expectations on us, like to go and move on, like to go find someone, or to like marry of a certain type, or move to a certain city, or get a certain job. So I'm pretty lucky that way. Even for my grandfather, who's, you know, really like old school from China, like, you know, but he was still very much like, okay, if this works for your parents, I'm just going to step back and respect that, and like, just because we don't live, you know, in that society, we live, you know, in a different society, so I'm just going to, you know, allow it and respect it. So I've been pretty privileged that way.
So Chinese culture overseas been evolving?
Definitely.
Kind of mingled with the cultures of the local country.
Yeah.
In some cities like Beijing and Shanghai,
First tier, second tier?
yeah, there tend to be more
Open-minded.
Parents and grandparents. But in much of the rest of the country, the traditional power still remains strong.
Yeah.
And so it especially makes the generation that is sandwiched in between. You know, where you have parents who control you, and then you also have kids that you have trouble controlling because...
And they will say, it's all for your good.
Yeah, exactly. And you're stuck in between, and you have to somehow balance, you know, all these...
No, in part of evolution, I think the parents were more hunter-gatherers, picking berries and hunting for food, and then the grandparents played that role of taking care of the younger ones. So it can work in perfect harmony, if not for this dividing values and dividing rules.
We mentioned earlier that for men, the expectations are you need to get a house, you need to get a car, but for women, you need to get married at a certain age, and this is something that I see here in China. Like you have to get married before, what is that age, 30?
Well,
I mean, I feel like girls are really
that by
pressured.
itself was never a problem before. But the thing is, right now, you have to have a career, successful career, and be married by 30. But the thing is, before,
by 30,
no, by age 30. But before the age of 30, after you graduate from college, let's say, by the age of maybe around 24, you know, if you get your master's degree, 24, 25, then basically you need about 4 or 5 years just to build the foundation of your career. And you don't have time to build a relationship.
That's a lot of expectations from us.
Yeah, so you're doing 2
We're going to get married by 30 and we're going to have a successful career.
You're feeling it. Now, probably you've seen it, pictures like that, and because, like you said, we're now talking about all these career women. Everyone is working in the daytime, and they couldn't even find time to go
on dates.
Yeah, exactly.
Or meet
so
guys.
the parents are actually doing it on their behalf. What is happening is, like you probably have heard, in parks, the parents will be holding the pictures of their sons and daughters, and you know there will be a list of
the marriage
conditions.
market. So you call the marriage market, right?
It's sort of,
yeah, kind of.
You've heard about that?
Yeah, I've been wanting to go and check it out, just out of curiosity.
You went there?
No, I wanted to 2 weeks ago, and then like a couple of my colleagues actually laughed and said like, it's all just a bunch of old people with posters. I was like,
but do the children know about this? Do their kids know about this?
They probably do or not, yeah.
So what is on that list? Like a
age,
photo?
height, weight, salary, maybe your
horoscope?
with your work, and you know,
But
and
if
most importantly, a picture.
If a relationship is not a priority for the bride or the groom, I don't understand what relationship, what family they can create.
But what about in India? Because I also understand that parents,
arranged marriages are still in there, but I don't think so. It's still the poster yet.
No, but you don't really have that relationship.
marriage market.
Marriage market, you don't have that.
No, we don't have that.
You know,
yeah, that's innovation from China.
But you have matchmaking also, right?
Yeah, but you know the
introduce.
problem with the parents in this marriage market is that you have parents looking from their own perspective, what's important to them. And what often results is that after a while, the son or daughter just decide to, okay, I'll get married just to please you. So basically, they marry someone that they don't really want, just so that you would get off my back.
Is this still happening?
Yes, it's still happening, and we have lots of marriages that just last for 2 or 3 years, and they get divorced, and they tend to be this type of marriage.
They got the age pressure.
Yeah,
basically, because, you know...
Yeah, so I'll get married to get you off my back. Actually, it's not just the parents off your back. It's
society.
It's society. It's just so many people around you. Every time they hear that you're 30 and single, they say, what? You know?
Yeah, and everyone is asking.
Everybody wants.
Let me set you up a date.
Everyone is checking on you.
Yeah, so
especially during the Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
And your relatives, your friends will be asking, hey, how's it going?
Yeah. When are you going to get married? When are we going to meet this guy?
Exactly.
And the second stage would be, hey, how is it going?
Yeah. When are you going to have kids? Right?
Yeah. So this kind of pressure, I don't know whether this...
No, it exists in India. Of course, the marriage market doesn't exist, but it is still arranged marriage, looking according to the society, the status, the financial status, and then getting two people married.
Yeah. It's not so much like an arranged marriage. Let's say parents, they're concerned, super concerned, and they play a very important role in trying to help you find the right one.
They think they're helping you, right?
Well, at least they're offering a possibility.
In India, they find the right one. They take the full
decide for you.
Yes. Mostly. Not every, I mean, it's progressing.
But do they get to meet beforehand?
Oh, yes. Yeah. They get to meet, they get to spend a little while.
But do you have a say?
But depends. In a village, I don't think the girl has ever a say.
See, the pressure could be even bigger in India than for the younger ones.
Yes.
So if you go on dates, that's fine. But if you're talking about marriage,
dates are still not fine in India.
Not fine?
No.
For
a majority of the population, dates are still not fine. But my concern for the world would be like, what are you trying to do? What are we actually trying to do in terms of creating a family? We are just, the parents are trying to fulfill their desires, their wishes.
Yeah.
Family is about two individuals coming together who are like, you know, there is so much of love within, and you really build a relationship, nurture and nourish a relationship.
That's true.
But it's very sad that we're moving this way.
When we talk about principles, people understand, yes, this is, you know, the right thing to do.
Yeah, but when you're in that society,
but the parents, I think, come from a feeling that they know the best. They're really concerned and they want to make sure that this child has the best in life.
Talking about pressure, there is another source of stress. Remember, this is special in China. We have this one generation or two generations only child in the family. But when you talk about the only child, starting from early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, now so they're in their 30s.
Late 30s, right?
Late 30s. Then this is the critical moment for them. Because they are the only child in family, the only couple of two families. And then they'll have to take care of the elder people from both families. We just saw a picture on media. It's basically, you know, two elderly people fell ill and they were in the same hospital, and the guy had to be sitting in between the two beds, you know, taking care of both elder people.
I think I'm hoping and I'm beginning to see a slight change also now, because part of that actually has to do with this tradition of filial piety that, as you know, you need to take care of the elderly, and which is wonderful. But however, it has turned into a almost enforced obligation where even if it's not necessary, you have to do it. But now there are more younger parents who are beginning to, you know, plan ahead. Is that I don't want to be a burden to my kids. I don't want to push this on him. I'll try to arrange things so that I will be taken care of. So that's, you know, from buying insurance and from, you know, their investment choices, and even taking out, making reservations for convalescent homes while they're still relatively young and relatively healthy, to plan ahead so that they do not become a burden.
They would have to be financially capable of doing that.
No, not only financially. I think it will be a more stigma from the society that if a parent is not being taken care of by the children.
Yeah.
Does it exist?
You know, for me, my parents just moved into a convalescent home just this month.
You just abandoned them.
And the thing is, after just 1 month, first of all, they love it there, and their health improved there, actually. because the environment is safe. There's a park nearby.
And a healthcare system.
A healthcare system, and so they actually love it there, and they are inviting their friends. So several times a week, they will have some of their friends come and visit them, and so they're almost like being this, PR person.
They just took themselves into salesmen.
Yeah, for this
Second
concept.
career.
And there are more people who come in and see it and said, well, this is wonderful.
Like you said, the
It is
pressure from the
cultural.
society. How come you, like I was joking, but you literally abandoned your parents. This kind of pressure from the society.
So that's why it takes people like my parents to push the idea rather than me.
Of course.
From both sides, actually.
Yeah,
Your parents have to
my
be
parents,
progressive.
they are the
Yeah,
ones that are
they
telling
have
people,
to
this
accept
is
it.
actually wonderful. And I'm not being abandoned. He comes here every week, come and visit. And whenever we need anything, we call, and he will take care of it.
Right.
But they can take care of their career and their family without having to worry, what if something happened in the middle of the night?
I think definitely helps when you have parents who push you to do it so that you don't get the guilt that comes with it, I mean, again, for me, my family has been quite good. I mean, I've been really lucky. Like, my parents are still relatively healthy and young, but they've already started talking to, the children about how I would like to be buried or cremated, and they've made all these little plans, right down to, like, my mom, living in a double-story house, for example, like shifting her room to downstairs so that she doesn't have to walk up or risk falling down or tripping. So there's all this little logistics that she's put into place in planning ahead for, as she ages, she and my dad, what we're going to do, or as all the other children start to leave the house. So I've been very fortunate that way. And they don't put you on a guilt trip, like, don't you dare put me in an old folks home, for example. There's never that conversation, so I'm very, very grateful for that.
Okay, let's take another break, and we'll come back. We'll talk about how we are going to cope with
stress, yeah. And for more information about Crossover, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We'll be right back.
Is it fear, anger, guilt, hurt, disappointment, sorrow, loneliness? Or is it love, joy, compassion, peace, calm, connection?
Welcome back to the studio. And we've been talking about stress and all these stressors. Now, let's talk about how we're going to cope with it.
So pets, do they help? Oh, he's not happy. Do they help in releasing the stress in life?
I think they do. I mean, I'm a dog lover. I have dogs. They definitely help. I mean, there's interaction, So, like, even, like, there will be days when you come back from home and you don't really want to speak to another human, for example, and you're like, I'm just going to be with my dog or
Talk
a
to
cat.
Siri.
Yeah.
That is sad.
That's sad, right? But yeah, having that little, I don't know, you feel a little, it's unconditional love because they don't really expect anything from you besides food and water.
Yeah.
So, like,
And I can relate to that because I have a dog, so whenever I go home, he's always happy to see me. So even if I had a rough day, even if I was, I was sad, I go home, there's a positive energy there.
Yeah.
And I think it really helps with,
You-
unwinding yourself and alleviating the stress,
The wonderful thing about pets is that they don't judge you.
Yes.
Much of our stress comes from people around us
Yeah.
judging us from one way or another. So this is number
yeah.
one. But what it makes it different from Siri is that it is a warm-blooded animal. As humans, we need to feel body temperature. And it responds to you without questioning you. So when you pet the cat, when sometimes it purrs, or it raises its back.
No, sometimes
it runs away.
just left. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's something that it's like the positive feedback that you're getting from them.
Yeah.
I would like to share a philosophical perspective that the Academy shares with the world all over. Stress as a state is alienating you from the rest of the world. You begin alienating you feel separate, you feel lonely, you feel depressed. It does not give you the connection that the human body, human mind, human spirit is really longing for. And you're getting lost living in the state of stress. Not only that you're getting lost, it's physically hurting you. Physically hurting your brain, your dendrites, your telomeres. it is hurting you physically, right from your DNA to the way the brain works. Everything is being damaged, and probably a damage which is mostly irreparable.
Well, I mean, the way you say it, the way you put it, it comforts people.
Yeah.
It's like counselor. And do people go to counselors for releasing their stress at all, Hazel?
I mean, for me, my observation is like in the last couple of years, there has been a greater awareness, or like people are starting to acknowledge the need for a check-into with themselves, an acknowledgement of mental health, acknowledgement of wanting to get well mentally and taking care of yourself. But I think that's very prevalent in the West. I think there's, you know, in the Asian culture, especially, like, I mean, for me, from where I come from and living here in China, is there is still some shame associated to go when you go out and seek professional help, because there's
not
this.
Sick.
Yeah, I don't need help. I'm not sick, and there's, I mean, growing up as a kid, you always say like, oh, she's gone mad, or she's gone loco because she's gone to a psychiatrist. So there wasn't a positive association to seeking help, and I think it's been repositioned in the last couple of years to taking care of yourself and, you know, self-love and mental health and all that, rather than she's gone mad or she's gone over the edge. And, you know, once you go to a psychiatrist, you're never going to be normal again, because, you know, you've just gone totally cuckoo, and you check yourself into, like, there's mad houses, or, you know, there's special terms for these places. Employment would be a challenge after you come out from this place, you know. So I think that's definitely a shift in Asia. I think it's been happening in the West. They're a little bit more open-minded, I suppose, but definitely growing in Asia.
But is that we sometimes don't even realize that we have a problem, like a problem like that.
I think a lot of times we actually do realize, but we don't want to acknowledge it. And you know, she's absolutely right that most people in China still are feeling uncomfortable about psychological intervention because they feel there's shame associated with it. And but right now, I think this is fine because we don't really have this large population of mental health professionals. We have something like 3 per million population. So yeah, so everybody, you know, want it. We don't have the people to do it. But more people are becoming aware of this need, and they're looking into things that they can learn, they can self-administer. So things like meditation, like yoga, like exercise, and they would go to not one-on-one intervention, but they would go to workshops to learn certain technique, or go to lectures so that they can achieve a better understanding. So this way, they're not exposing their, you know, private, what they consider to be private problems.
About consciousness, growth, inner well-being was limited earlier. 15 years back, it was limited to fewer sections of the society. But right now, everybody working in companies, in education fields, sociologists, everybody is interested in living a better life, a better quality of inner life. So consciousness, meditation is not alienated to very few people. It has become the way of living.
So it has been accepted?
It has been accepted.
Not only in the West?
Not only in the West, all over.
It is wellness. It is not therapy.
It is like a supplement, not a it is not a medicine. It is not an antibiotic. But you're giving you the needed wisdom, the needed practices, the tools, the states in order to deal with life.
So it's like a lifestyle now, you know, you choose to have this lifestyle where you take care of yourself and you practice mindfulness, versus in the past, or, you know, in certain parts of the world where you still associate wellness or self-care with medication and psychiatric help and hospitals and stuff.
Yeah, you've done that before?
I've never done meditation, to be honest.
I just have a worry, though, that I would fall asleep.
Probably in the beginning.
But that's also good, right?
That means you're relaxed, right?
So what we're going to do now is, I mean, different ways of releasing stress. Probably working out is one way. You know, to raise a pet is one way. Music is one way. To go to see a counselor, psychiatrist
what do you
is
do?
another way. I'm going to learn the meditation.
Excellent.
So shall we? Shall we not do it?
So relax. Close your eyes. Yeah, with your spine erect. We don't want you to sleep. Breathe. Inhale and exhale deep and slow.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Crossover. We're going to take our time to do meditation.
We'll see you next time.
We'll see you again.